Most people think Romeo and Juliet is the greatest love story ever written. Shakespeare would disagree. He opens the play with a warning. Civil blood makes civil hands unclean. This city's hatred has stained everybody in it, not just the warring families, everyone. And then Shakespeare tells you the ending, right there, line 6, before Act 1 even begins. He calls them star-crossed lovers. Star-crossed meaning opposed by the stars, fated against them. But here's what your English teacher wants you to notice. Shakespeare isn't saying fate killed them. He's asking you to watch and decide for yourself. Was it fate? Or was it choices? Choices made one by one that built the trap these two teenagers walked into? Keep that question in mind. Act 1 opens not with royalty, not with romance with a street brawl. Servants, not even the main families yet. Servants, fighting over whose employer's family name sounds tougher. It's almost funny, until someone draws a sword. This is Verona, a city where hatred has trickled all the way down to the people who do the laundry. The prince arrives and shuts it down furious. Translation: one more brawl, and somebody gets executed. He's not cruel, he's desperate, holding a city together while two powerful families turn it into a war zone. When we first meet Romeo Montague, he is not thinking about Juliet. He's thinking about Rosaline, who wants nothing to do with him, and he is absolutely devastated about it. Wandering the streets before dawn, sighing at the moon, writing poetry his friends describe, generously, as not very good. Mercutio's theory? Romeo is performing his feelings, putting on a show of heartbreak, rather than actually feeling it. Honestly, Mercutio might be right. Because the moment Romeo sees Juliet, every thought of Rosaline evaporates instantly. That is not how grief works. That is how infatuation works. Romeo's friends convince him to crash the Capulet party. There will be other girls. You'll feel better. Romeo agrees. I'll go along. No such sight to be shown, but to rejoice in splendor of mine own. Which is him saying, sure, I'll come, but I'll still be thinking about Rosaline. He is not still thinking about Rosaline. The Capulet party is one of the great scenes in English literature, not because of what happens, but because of how Shakespeare writes it. Romeo walks in wearing a mask. He sees Juliet across the room, and instead of going over to introduce himself like a normal person, he stops and speaks to himself about her. Did my heart love till now? Forswear it, sight, for I ne'er saw true beauty till this night. Did my heart love till now? Was anything I felt before this moment even real? They meet, they talk, and Shakespeare does something remarkable. He structures their first conversation as a sonnet, a 14-line poem split between them. Romeo speaks 7 lines. Juliet responds with the next 7. They complete each other's poem without knowing they're doing it. Then Juliet finds out who Romeo is. My only love sprung from my only hate. Too early seen unknown, and known too late. She has fallen for the one person in Verona she is absolutely forbidden to love, and yet she doesn't walk away. Neither does he. That night, Romeo climbs the Capulet garden wall. Enemy territory. In the dark, he could be killed just for being there. He's going to find her balcony. Part 2. The most famous scene in English literature and what Shakespeare is actually doing with it. When we left off, Romeo had just crashed a Capulet party and fallen hard for the one girl in Verona he's forbidden to love. Now he's trespassed into her family's garden at night. If he's caught, he's dead. He finds her balcony. He hides below, and she appears, not knowing he's there, and starts talking to herself. What she says next is one of the most famous speeches in the English language.
O Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou Romeo? Deny thy father and refuse thy name, or if thou wilt not be but sworn my love, and I'll no longer be a Capulet. What's in a name? That which we call a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. So Romeo would, were he not Romeo, called retain that dear perfection which he owes without that title.
This is Juliet making a philosophical argument. A name is just a label. It doesn't change what a thing actually is. The rose doesn't know it's called a rose. Romeo doesn't stop being Romeo just because his last name is Montague. Shakespeare puts the most rational thinking in the entire play into the mouth of a 13-year-old girl. In a society that didn't think women were capable of that kind of thinking, Romeo steps out of the shadows. They talk for the rest of the night. By morning, they've decided to get married.
Call me but love, and I'll be new baptized. Henceforth I never will be Romeo.
I'll be new baptized. He'll take a new name. For her, he is offering to become a different person, which is either deeply romantic or a sign that he has no idea who he actually is yet. Possibly both. Romeo goes to Friar Lawrence at dawn. I'm in love with Juliet Capulet. Marry us. Today, the friar's reaction is worth paying attention to.
Holy Saint Francis, what a change is here! Is Rosolini, that thou didst love so dear, so soon forsaken? Young men's love then lies not truly in their hearts, but in their eyes.
Not truly in their hearts, but in their eyes. He's pointing out clearly that Romeo is driven by what he sees, not by what he knows. He barely knows Juliet.
These violent delights have violent ends, and in their triumph die, like fire and powder, which, as they kiss, consume.
These violent delights have violent ends. The friar is narrating the rest of the play to us right here, in Act 2 as a warning Romeo will not hear. And yet the friar agrees to marry them. His logic: maybe this marriage ends the feud. Two families bound by love put down their swords. It is an optimistic theory. It is wrong. Less than 24 hours after they met, Romeo and Juliet are married in secret. A Montague and a Capulet, bound together, in a city that would rather see them buried. It is now the same afternoon, and in the next 90 minutes Romeo will kill two people, be banished from Verona forever, and everything the friar hoped for will be destroyed. Before we get to the violence, we have to talk about Mercutio. Mercutio is arguably the most entertaining character Shakespeare ever wrote. Romeo's best friend, sharp, irreverent, allergic to sincerity. When Romeo speaks in flowery metaphors, Mercutio makes fun of him. When Romeo is lovesick, Mercutio is exasperated. When the whole world takes itself too seriously, Mercutio makes a joke.
If love be rough with you, be rough with love. Prick love for pricking, and you beat love down.
He believes dreams and love are just tricks the mind plays. He thinks Romeo's passion is beautiful nonsense. He is wrong about a lot of things, but he is right about one. Things are about to go very badly. Tybalt Capulet is the opposite of Mercutio in every way. Where Mercutio deflects with humor, Tybalt advances with aggression. Verona's code says, an insult must be answered with a fight. Tybalt lives by that code completely. He finds Romeo in the street. He wants satisfaction for the party intrusion. Romeo arrives and for the first time tries to make peace.
Tybalt, the reason that I have to love thee doth much excuse the appearing rage to such a greeting. Villain am I none. Therefore farewell, I see thou knowest me not.
He can't explain why. He can't say, I married your cousin this morning. So to everyone watching, Romeo looks like a coward. Mercutio is disgusted.
Oh come, dishonorable, vile submission, all staccata carries it away.
He steps in to fight Tybalt himself. Romeo tries to stop it, gets between them, and in doing so, by trying to prevent the fight, he accidentally gives Tybalt the opening to stab Mercutio under his arm.
A plague on both your houses, they have made worms meat of me.
He says it 3 times before he dies. Mercutio, who laughed at everything, who thought love was a trick, dies cursing both families with his last breath. Romeo watches his best friend die, and something in him breaks.
Away to heaven, respective lenity, and fire-eyed fury be my conduct now.
He is not thinking about Juliet, not thinking about the marriage, the friar, the peace he tried to make. He kills Tybalt. Romeo killed Tybalt in a city where the prince just threatened execution for another brawl. Part 3. The fallout. Banishment. A desperate plan. And a girl who has to make the most terrifying decision of her life alone.
When we left off, Romeo killed Tybalt. His best friend dead, his enemy dead, his marriage secret. Now the prince arrives. He knows the law. Romeo is banished from Verona. Not executed, there's a mercy in that. But banished, exiled, gone. Romeo goes to the friar's cell, completely unraveling.
There is no world without Verona walls, but purgatory, torture, hell itself. Hence, banished is banished from the world, and world's exile is death.
Hold thy desperate hand. Art thou a man? Thy form cries out thou art. Thy tears are womanish, thy wild acts denote the unreasonable fury of a beast.
The friar talks Romeo down. Here is the plan. Spend one last night with Juliet, then go to Mantua. Wait, the friar will work on a pardon. When the time is right, Romeo comes back. It is, at this moment, a reasonable plan. Juliet, meanwhile, has just learned that her husband killed her cousin.
O serpent heart hid with a flowering face, did ever dragon keep so fair a cave?
She is angry, she is grieving, she is torn, and then she stops and makes a choice.
My husband lives, that Tybalt would have slain, and Tybalt's dead that would have slain my husband. All this is comfort.
All this is comfort. She talks herself through the grief and arrives somewhere. Romeo is alive. That is what matters. Lord Capulet, trying to cheer his grieving household, has an idea. Juliet will marry Paris, wealthy, respectable nobleman. In 3 days, he hadn't consulted Juliet. When Juliet refuses, citing grief, asking for more time, her father's reaction is one of the most uncomfortable scenes in the play. He is threatening to physically drag her to the church. Her mother refuses to intervene. Her nurse, who has known her since birth, who she trusted more than anyone, tells her to forget Romeo and marry Paris.
Is there no pity sitting in the clouds that sees into the bottom of my grief?
She has no allies left, except the friar who, panicking slightly himself, comes up with a desperate plan.
Take thou this vial, being then in bed, and this distilled liquor drink thou off. When presently through all thy veins shall run a cold and drowsy humor, for no pulse shall keep his native progress, but surcease.
The plan: drink a potion, appear dead, wake up in the Capulet tomb. Romeo will be there. You'll escape together. Juliet alone in her bedroom the night before the forced wedding runs through everything that could go wrong. What if the potion kills her instead of paralyzing her? What if she wakes up early, alone in a tomb full of dead bodies? What if Romeo doesn't come?
What if it be a poison, which the friar subtly hath ministered to have me dead, lest in this marriage he should be dishonored because he married me before to Romeo?
She is genuinely asking, what if the person I trust is wrong? What if this plan fails? She drinks it anyway.
Romeo, 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 his drink. I drink to thee.
She is drinking a poison possibly and dedicating it to the person she loves. The next morning, her family finds her apparently lifeless. The wedding becomes a funeral, and in Mantua, a city away, Romeo is waiting for news. The friar sends a messenger. She's not really dead. Come. The message never arrived. The messenger was quarantined, stuck in a house suspected of plague. He couldn't leave. This is not a villain's doing. No one betrayed anyone. A letter was delayed. By coincidence. By bad luck. And that bad luck for minutes will get there is what kills them. Romeo hears the news a different way. Juliet is dead. He doesn't question it. He buys poison from an apothecary in Mantua.
There is thy gold, worse poison to men's souls, doing more murder in this loathsome world than these poor compounds that thou mayst not sell. I sell thee poison, thou hast sold me none.
In the middle of his worst moment, Shakespeare gives Romeo a sharp observation. Gold is the real poison. Money is more destructive than anything in that bottle. A small, easy-to-miss moment and one of the most politically sharp lines in the play. Romeo is writing for Verona. He's carrying poison, and Juliet is about to wake up. Part 4. For minutes, and what they cost.
When we left off, Juliet had drunk the friar's potion and appeared dead. Her family placed her in the Capulet tomb. Romeo is riding for Verona carrying poison. He believes she is gone. The message that could save both of them never arrived. Romeo arrives at the Capulet tomb. Paris is already there, mourning Juliet, leaving flowers. They fight. Romeo kills Paris. He enters the tomb, and he sees Juliet. She looks as though she is sleeping. Her color is still warm. Her lips, he notes, still look alive. And Romeo, who is smart, who has good instincts, does not wonder why a dead person looks this well.
Death, that hath sucked the honey of thy breath, hath had no power yet upon thy beauty. Thou art not conquered. Beauty's ensign yet is crimson in thy lips and in thy cheeks.
He is standing right next to her. She will wake up in minutes. He's describing how alive she looks. And he concludes, death is keeping her beautiful as a prize.
Oh, here will I set up my everlasting rest, and shake the yoke of inauspicious stars from this world-wearied flesh. Eyes, look your last. Arms, take your last embrace. And lips, O you the doors of breath, seal with a righteous kiss, a dateless bargain to engrossing death.
A permanent, irrevocable deal with dying. He drinks the poison. The friar arrives too late. He sees Romeo dead on the floor. He hears Juliet beginning to stir.
Lady, come from that nest of death, contagion, and unnatural sleep. A greater power than we can contradict hath thwarted our intents.
He is saying, this is beyond us now. Come, we have to go.
Come, come away. Thy husband in thy bosom there lies dead, and Paris too. Come, I'll dispose of thee among a sisterhood of holy nuns.
He is giving Juliet an exit. There is still a way out. She refuses. The friar flees, frightened by approaching voices. Juliet is alone.
What's here? A cup, closed in my true love's hand. Poison, I see, hath been his timeless end. Oh, churl, drunk all, and left no friendly drop to help me after.
Even now, Shakespeare gives Juliet a moment of dark wit. She calls Romeo a churl for not leaving her any.
Yea, noise. Then I'll be brief. O happy dagger, this is thy sheath. There rust, and let me die.
She takes his dagger, and that is the end. Both families arrive. The prince arrives. They stand in the tomb, looking. The friar confesses everything: the marriage, the plan, the letter that never arrived. And the prince says what Shakespeare has been building toward the entire play. See what a scourge is laid upon your hate, that heaven finds means to kill your joys with love. Your hate killed them, not fate, not the stars. The feud created a world where a secret marriage was the only option, where a desperate escape plan was the only hope, where a 4-minute delay was a death sentence. The Montagues and Capulets, standing over their children, finally make peace. For never was a story of more woe than this of Juliet and her Romeo. Shakespeare ends on that line. No comfort, no explanation, just, this is what it cost. Romeo and Juliet was written in 1594. It has been performed continuously for over 400 years. More productions than any other Shakespeare play. More adaptations than any other work in the English language. Why? Every generation has its version of the ancient grudge. Every family, community, country has inherited hatreds, conflicts whose origins nobody living can fully explain. And every generation has its version of the two young people caught in the middle of it. That is why this story won't leave. It is not about Verona. It never was. When your English teacher assigns Romeo and Juliet, they are teaching you to do specific things. These things will show up on every test, every AP exam, for the next 4 years. First, how to read for theme. The theme is not love is beautiful. The real themes are how inherited conflict destroys the innocent, how acting without thinking causes irreversible harm, how communication, or the failure of it, changes everything. When your teacher asks what is the theme, they want one of those, not a plot summary. Second, how to write about characters. Juliet drinks the potion that is a plot point. Juliet drinks the potion because she has run out of conventional options and chooses action over paralysis. Consistent with how Shakespeare writes her throughout as more decisive than Romeo, that is analysis. Third, how to use quotes as evidence. Every argument you make needs a line from the text to back it up. The friars, these violent delights have violent ends. That's evidence for the theme of impulsiveness. Juliet's "What's in a name?" that's evidence for identity beyond social labels. The quotes are not decoration. They are proof. Before we close, a rapid-fire tour of the lines worth having in your memory. Not because you'll be tested on them, because they're genuinely that good. What's in a name? That which we call a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. On identity and labels, one of the most useful philosophical arguments ever written in 14 words. These violent delights have violent ends. On moving too fast, applicable to basically every impulsive decision. A plague on both your houses. On suffering for other people's conflict, Mercutio's final, furious verdict. Good night. Good night. Parting is such sweet sorrow, that I shall say good night till it be morrow. Sweet and sorrow, in the same moment, at the same time. That is what Shakespeare does better than almost anyone. He finds the exact word for feelings we can't quite name ourselves. For never was a story of more woe than this of Juliet and her Romeo. The closing line. The whole play in 2 lines. Shakespeare knew exactly what he was doing. Next in the series, Julius Caesar, a story about a man who trusted the wrong people, a speech that changed the course of history, and the most manipulative piece of rhetoric ever put on a stage. If Romeo and Juliet is about what hate costs, Julius Caesar is about what ambition costs. And the speech, friends, Romans, countrymen, is a masterclass in how words can move crowds to do things they would otherwise never do. Worth knowing before you're old enough to vote. Subscribe so you don't miss it.